in, because we are looking for you to get on the phone right now at 888-388-8821. That's 888-388-8821. You can also head online to jp2radio.com. If you're a Venmo person, open up your Venmo app, look for JP2 Radio, hit the amount or type in the amount that you would like to send us, and then hit submit. It is that easy as well. We really need your support. As we talked about yesterday on day one of the pledge drive, this is a great evangelizing mission, and what we seek to do is bring you the truth of the gospel, Jesus Christ himself, the way, the truth, and the life, every single day. And if you are a person who can get behind that mission and wants anybody who tunes in to listen to JP2 Catholic Radio to come to know Jesus and love Jesus, then now is the time to support us, because we are 100% listener funded, and it all starts with you. Gifts big and small, the amount doesn't matter. What does matter is the fact that you support us in the ways that you possibly can. 888-388-8821 or jp2radio.com. Before we jump into our wonderful guests who we have joining us this hour, I think it's fitting that we make sure that we start with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. I should mention, too, that we are broadcasting live from Our Lady of the Rosary. We are in the upper room of their parish hall, and we have a Shroud of Turin exhibit that JP2 Radio has that we have displayed. There's 41 different banners as a part of this display, explaining everything about the shroud. And if you're in the area tonight at 6:30, we're actually going to have a presentation on the shroud delivered by Dr. John Sotosanti. We had him as a guest yesterday. He's back today to do that presentation. So if you have a chance to stop by and check out this exhibit, I really encourage you to do that. It is quite incredible. And it really just speaks to the science behind everything that we believe about the shroud as well. So that is everything that I wanted to say. I want to give out the number one more time, and we will hop in with our guests. 888-388-8821, 888-388-8821. Okay, so joining me this hour, we have three gentlemen from a men's group in the area. We have John Larea. How you doing, John?
Good. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having us.
Great to have you. And then we have Tim Hutter.
Good morning.
Good morning. And then we have Cesar Jimenez.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Thank you guys for coming on. So so I understand it's six of you guys in the men's group. Did you draw straws, or how did you choose who was going to come on the air today?
It was the three best looking of the six. For
Three
sure.
best looking.
That was the cutoff.
That's great, because we are streaming on Facebook and YouTube as well via videos.
Choice.
So if you want to hop on and watch the broadcast on Facebook or YouTube, please look for us, JP2 Radio, as well. So John, I first got to know you because you guys had sent out a press release. You had Jason Everett come into your parish, and you wanted to get as much media attention as possible to fill the hall, and that's exactly what happened. So we had you on JP2 Morning Crew, and then had a great conversation. We had your wife on as well, and Father Amsbury. And it was just a really great opportunity to be able to showcase how we really want to highlight the great things that are happening in our local area. So just talk a little bit about your experience, if you would, on JP2 Morning Crew.
Yeah. So that was such a blessing that you invited us in, and that event turned out really, really well. And Jason, he been listening to Jason for 20 years, and the message that he's been sharing with adults and youth, and that youth ministry piece is actually a connection amongst the six of us. And Jason has been somebody that we all know, have heard, have learned from, and been able to share with youth for, again, over 20 years. Caesar knows him, has known him for a long time personally, and so we're blessed to be here, and we're blessed that you guys have helped us on the radio kind of spread the word and encourage others to come in and hear more about it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I reached out to you and I'm like, hey, would you love to come on our pledge drive? And you're like, yes, I would. How about we bring the men's group on? Because you normally meet on Thursday mornings at 7 a.m. You weren't able to make it tomorrow morning, so we were able to get you guys on today. So thanks for taking time out of your morning and joining us today.
Thank you.
So Tim, let's just hear a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So as John said, been doing youth ministry stuff, and that's kind of how we all connected in the first instance. My wife is a retired youth minister. Now she's youth minister to our 5 kids. They might be listening right now. So, hey guys. And so I grew up going to St. Michael's. Now I'm a parishioner at Our Lady of Mount Carmel. I'm an attorney by profession. So I do real estate and development law. And, John and I have a funny kind of connection story. Just both of our wives were youth ministers, now 10, 15 years ago. But we kept running into each other at different industry events, real estate events. And finally, we were at the Steubenville San Diego conference, over a weekend, chaperoning and waking up,
Trying to wake up teenagers knocking on the door.
Who have been
up
up till 2, 3 in the
Literally,
morning.
we were a door apart from each other. Knocking, wake up!
So, don't I know you? So that was a cool connection for John and I, many years ago, and then there's kind of the other guys in the group definitely have similar connections and kind of I think every one of us have been involved in youth ministry in some form or fashion over the years, and now it's definitely a transition to talking about our faith and our families and being fathers and kind of figuring out how do we do life.
Yeah, excellent. Caesar, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So Cesar Jimenez, originally from Tijuana, Mexico. I was born and raised there. I moved to San Diego to the U.S. at 17 when the immigration paperwork came in. Grabbed the paperwork, told my parents, see you later, going to the U.S. and came by myself. They said, take your brother with you. So I did. So I came with a little brother. Very blessed to live in Pacific Beach and then be a part of a youth ministry called The Gathering. We found that right away. It feels like divine intervention for us to end up there. And after that, I went to Franciscan University for college, came back, and I was a teacher at then Marian Catholic, now Mater Dei. I was the campus minister there, taught religion. And then about 6 years in, I felt called to do something else. And so I joined a local municipal police department. And I've been there for about 17 years. And I'm a lieutenant now. It's like a middle management position, but I've worked in investigations and patrol, obviously, and most of my career investigations. And 2 kids in college, almost, and a wife, and been married for 20 years. And again, met these guys when we were in youth ministry through some of these guys when I was growing up as a kid in youth ministry myself, and then all of us, hand on the plow, and as far as trying to do the Lord's work with young men and women.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, getting back to you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. You moved here 20 plus years ago now, and got involved in youth ministry right away, and really created a Catholic community through that. Started in Pacific Beach as well at St. Bridget's, and met my now wife through youth ministry, who ran the youth ministry. She was the youth minister director at St. Mary Magdalene in Bay Park, and our kids ended up going to school of the Magdalene, so very involved there. This group has become so important to me, this men's group, in anchoring into what they help me focus on what God wants for us, not only in our families, but in our professional life. And the professional life has grown in different companies and in different backgrounds. Blessed now to be at A1 Self-Storage with Castor family, who, strong Catholic family and Catholic identity. And it's been a blessing to work with them. Just so blessed professionally and personally. We have a wife. I have a wife, and I have a wife and 3 kids. Gosh, God continues to bless me every day. Again, both personally and professionally, and blessed to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen. Reminder that this is the Spring Pledge Drive here on JP2 Catholic Radio, inviting you to call in and offer your donation at 888-388-8821. 888-388-8821. 8821. You can also head to our website, jp2radio.com, and donate there. And we're also on Venmo. Just look up JP2 Radio on Venmo, and you can submit your donation there. We're visiting this morning with the men's group. We've got John and Caesar and Tim, and we're just going to dive into life as men and fellowship as men. So I'm just curious. So you guys all like, hey, we know each other. You know, we have this connection through youth ministry. Who decided that maybe we should start getting together and meeting as men?
I think that's controversial on who started this whole thing, right?
Robert was like, "Word."
Yeah, I thought it was Robert.
Yeah. No, I do remember at one point talking to Robert here. It actually right here in Little Italy. This location, Our Lady of the Rosary, the piazza that's there now on Date Street has been an anchor geographically for this group actually, and I know we talked about it early on. These guys were also talking about it with Robert as well, and we brought this group of 6 together, and it really was all about let's meet weekly, let's read the gospel for Sunday, so we spend a little more time in the Word. We try to dive into that, and that was before Bishop Barron was doing his reflections, I believe. But as Bishop Barron was doing his reflections, that really helped us kind of anchor into what that gospel reading was going to be about, and kick us off with some reflection in the morning, and then that evolved in that every morning or Thursday morning evolves into, okay, how do you take that reflection, the gospel reading, and anchor that in your life and what's going on professionally, what's going on at home. How are you putting God first in your life? And it's been such a addition to, where obviously our Sunday Mass and our own reflection, our own prayer. It's just an addition to that, and it's been a beautiful thing for us.
That's great. Tim, talk a little bit about how that reflection each week on the gospel and what that means in your life has really impacted your journey.
Yeah, I would even say there were some of us that were, even before this group really tightened up. We were working with Deacon Mike Daniels. He was leading a Bible study and reflection, maybe once a month, with a larger group of maybe 20 or 30 guys, but it was not as consistent and not quite what we were. I think a subset of us really decided, hey, we want to get together and make this a more committed experience. And part of the reason we typically get together at 6 a.m. on Thursday mornings is because that's a time that we can all carve out to try and get separate from baseball practice or work events or family stuff. It's a time period when we try to really devote to this group for an hour or an hour and a half or however long we can make, right? And so John's usually a little bit of our taskmaster, make sure that we focus from the social and the catch up of how was your trip or what's going on with the family, those kinds of things, but making sure that we stay on task and read the gospel, dwell on the Word, talk through, kind of what's jumping out to you, right? And it's like anything else, when you're reading the Word, there's going to be something different that jumps out to you every time, right? And with 6 guys, gathered around, everybody's going to feel it in a slightly different way, relate to it in a different way about their kind of perspective and what's going on in your life. And so I think that's been a real value to me, is kind of hearing and we have a range of ages in the group. And not a huge.
You just
span,
call me old,
but a little bit. You said you were the oldest. I didn't say that. I wasn't going to call you out.
And the wisest.
But we've got a little bit of span in terms of life experience, right? One of our guys is expecting a newborn next month, right? And so we've got whereas Caesar's youngest is about to graduate from high school, so it's a different series of perspectives, right? And a different. I think a lot of what we share is the wisdom of that lived experience of like, hey, I've been through that, or hey, I've been through something like that, or, hey, you're going through the season right now that is super intense and it gets better, and you'll get to a point where, you'll feel more comfortable, and you and your wife will get back, to wherever you were before, right? That there's just a lot of that kind of, to me, benefit of the shared experience among the 6 of us about kind of where we are in a particular time in our lives, and that's been super helpful to me for sure.
That's awesome. You know, as a young guy, we have 3 young children. Our youngest is 5 weeks old, actually. So
Congrats.
we're in
That's
that
awesome.
no sleep stage
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah.
But I always appreciate, you know, talking to men who have been along that journey and are further along, and you know they can provide that advice and that wisdom. Because when you're in the midst of it, it's like kind of pulling your hair out
Yeah.
at times, and you know you're doing your best, but it's almost like you're in survival mode at certain times, you know. And so to have like good men by your side who can just journey with you through it it's been really helpful for me. So that's really awesome that you guys have that. Caesar, how about the impact for you?
I think, especially right now, I mean, for me specifically, it's been great. Um, just because it's good to have that fellowship. You know, it's good to have things to bounce off people, and then also the ability to help other folks. And maybe I've gone through some struggles and some difficulties, and at that time I was like, Lord, why am I going through this? And maybe it's just so I can give some advice, or at least just tell somebody, hey, I've been there and I know how it feels. You know, whether it's, you know, having a difficult boss, or having an assignment that not everybody, that's not a great assignment, or just like I said, going having with little kids, and then what that does to a marriage, and then the different places that you can be in your marriage. Highs and lows, everybody has them. And so um it's been really beneficial, you know. And then especially if you have a job that has high stress, it's good to be able to unload a little bit of that, and talk about some of the things, obviously not too specific, um in that source it's been really good. And then everybody's got a little bit of a different perspective, you know. And we all read and consume different things, whether it be, you know, listening to the radio, you know, like this station where you have different speakers, and how that, and then they bring that to the table. Somebody else might be listening to a podcast or reading a book that might be, that everybody else can relate to, and also be nourished by that spiritually. So um, we're all very different. We don't have the same interests, you know. John doesn't know who Dana White is. You know, I thought that was a household name.
The UFC. That's not my thing.
You know,
Not my thing. No, we do call Caesar the elder statesman, though. Even though I'm older, he's the elder statesman because he was the most trained out of Franciscan University on Catholic authors, and so we always look to Caesar to give us a little extra about Balthazar or something like that.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure I disappoint every time.
The worst is when you're not there and then somebody else has to pick up the mantle.
It doesn't go very well.
Do you draw straws for that one, or
No, it's just,
do you determine who gets to step
Hey, does
in?
anybody have anything wise to say? Have you read a book lately?
Reading?
Yeah.
Yeah, since my kids are older, I have the benefit of reading more and working out more.
Yeah.
Don't look at me.
No, the group does have the old guy text chain and the young guy text chain. In fact, they were giving us a hard time this morning because Caesar and I are the old guys and the rest of the guys are the young guys. And we welcome Tim in today.
I crossed over. Yeah.
Yeah.
recently.
Wow.
You made the
Turned
cut.
40 in
This is a
November.
big
Yeah.
moment for you, Tim. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is really
I
great.
straddle the line. I go back and forth between the two groups.
You act like
As
an
it
old guy.
benefits
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I think we got to give a shout out to the young guys who are listening right now, inviting them to call in and donate and support us here
Absolutely. Get
during
those
this
guys
hour of our pledge drive.
You don't want them calling in.
up. No, just put the credit card down, guys.
888-388-8821, 888-388-8821. And since they're younger, you know, they probably have Venmo as well. So
What's Venmo?
if they want to look us up on Venmo, there's a quick and easy way to donate. Just look for JP2 Radio, type in the amount you want to give and hit submit. And you can also donate online, jp2radio.com. We really need your support. You know, Caesar was talking about the spiritual nourishment that he gets from the men's group. And really, when you think about Catholic radio and the importance of Catholic radio, it really is about that spiritual nourishment to come to get to know more about what we believe as Catholics and why we believe, and just let that kind of simmer and percolate. And you know, you just never know when a conversation is going to come up with somebody, you know, whether it's a friend or a stranger or something like that, and being able to understand and articulate back what we believe as Catholics. And my experience actually has been when I do that, get into those conversations. A lot of times it's like, I had no idea Catholics actually believe that. You know, if you're talking to a non-Catholic, or you're the first Catholic I've talked to can actually explain this in a way that makes it easy to understand, right? And I credit, 10 plus years in Catholic radio and listening to Catholic radio and encouraging me to go in deeper into my faith and dive into scripture and Lectio Divina and just meditating upon the gospel. So this really is, this is an aspect of Catholic radio that we want to keep around because there is so much to learn in our Catholic faith. And honestly, the more we learn, the more I realize I have to learn. And so it's great to have a resource like this to be able to help us.
Yeah.
So,
Brandon, do you mind if I just
go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, Brandon, that ability to listen to Catholic radio and other Catholic media has really helped me articulate in a professional sense, what the faith means to me. And, just this week I had a young guy that reached out, completely out of the blue. And he somehow found me on LinkedIn and had read a little bit about me, had a little bit of a Catholic background to youth ministry and things. And he reached out and he said, I just want to know more about how you walked in your professional life along and kept your faith in the forefront of all of that. And it was just such a blessing to get on a call with him this week, be able to articulate a lot of, what we listen to and then bring to our group on a Thursday morning and then share with a young person. And that guy's eyes just light up and say, hey, I didn't know I could have a job like that. I didn't know I could be a professional that, really made my faith a core foundation of who I am at the workplace and at home. So it really helps. I agree with you.
That's great. We have a friend of JP2 Radio, Eddie Moduena, who was a former police chief in El Centro, and he talks about just the importance of remaining close to the faith in all that he saw as an officer. Talk about being able to remain true to your faith and close to the Lord, especially with some of the things that you've seen in your career. Caesar.
No, absolutely. That's wellness is a huge aspect that we're trying to talk about more and more in law enforcement because suicide rates are so high. And part of that is there's a lack of fellowship. You see things, and if you don't have a faith, it's really difficult to explain the why. And I think there's something in us that we always try to explain why this happened. Like if somebody's on drugs, then that's easy to say, well, it's some bad habits that led to this person's demise, or bad personal, decisions as far as, relationships or just committing crime in general. But when you see things happen to innocent people and you ask the question of why, if you don't have faith, if you don't have something to really root you, and something that says, I can't explain this, but I know God's will, and I know God's will is good, and something good will come out of this, even if it's something horrible, and just kind of have faith in that. At least for me, I find that it helps, and also helps me focus on my mission. My mission is to, depending on where I'm at, but when I was a detective or working investigations, it was, who did this and what can we do to make sure that this person doesn't do this to somebody else. And I find guidance in that, hope in that, and also a sense that this is the mission that was given to me. And so my role is to do the best job possible that I can, whether it means that, hey, we're going to be here all night until we solve this thing, which some cases require that, and yeah, hungry, tired, that's fine. There'll be time for that. Right now, this is the mission, this is the focus, and this is what we're doing. So it kind of feel like it elevates what I'm doing from just the mundane and secular to higher order thinking and a higher order mission.
Yeah, I love that. As an attorney, the word that comes to mind is truth, right? As we talk about spreading the gospel truth through JP2 Catholic Radio, there's truth in the law, and the reason that the laws were created for the most part. I mean, there's definitely exceptions, right? But talk about bringing your faith into the work that you do.
Sure. I'm glad you said truth and not mundane and secular when describing the law. But sometimes there's definitely that, and it's good to interact with Caesar and get a little dose of what's going on in the real world outside of, kind of the real estate development construction battles that I'm involved in. But, I think one of the things that has been important for me over the course of my career and kind of into the position that I'm in now, in a little bit of a leadership role within my office and within my firm, is just trying to create kind of a model for doing this career, doing this profession in a way that, gives you a little bit more balance and gives you, modeling the ability to be a husband and father and coach Little League and kind of, do all those things while trying to build a client base and trying to serve your clients and be a successful professional. And I think that's true in a lot of different careers, obviously, that trying to figure out where your priorities lie and keeping those priorities straight. And there's definitely been times, especially over the last, 8 years that we've been getting together, where these guys will tell me, "Hey, you got to get refocused, right? You're drifting in the wrong direction." And I think that's one of the main benefits that I've taken away, and kind of, again, Thursday morning, right? You're a little more than halfway through the week, but you're in it, right? It's deep into the week. A lot of times I was up late working the night before, whatever it is, and you come to this group so focused on whatever was your stress beforehand. And for me, it kind of is an opportunity to clear my head a little bit, right, middle of the week, and get a refocus on what are the things that I really need to be emphasizing. Where were the places that I've failed already this week, and how can I do better heading into the weekend. And so for me, that affects professional life, right? There's a lot of things that I will do on Thursday mornings when I get to the office, where I've now had a refocus of some clarity, whether it's a conversation I want to have in the office, where now I have a renewed focus or a renewed kind of energy to a particular issue or a particular person. Like, okay, in any workplace, there's an opportunity to minister to people, right? And to kind of convey that attitude and be Christ-like in that environment. So I think for me, that's been a big help, is just to, especially with guys, again, in our group who are all in different professions, different business, but kind of, sharing that experience, I think, has been super helpful.
That's great. I want to thank Stella and George from El Centro who called in with a gift. Thank you so much. And we're inviting you to call in with your gift at 888-388-8821. 888-388-8821. We heard from El Centro. How about anybody listening on AM 1450 in Escondido, or FM 93.3 in Brawley, or here in San Diego, FM 93.7? If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, we're inviting you to go to JP2radio.com and donate as well. If you're listening on the app or via Venmo, we have many different opportunities for you to give. We try to make it as easy as possible to meet you where you're at and help you be able to offer this donation in a quick and easy and safe and secure way. And so that's the invitation here. We have Beatrice also giving a gift. Thank you, Beatrice. And Bo, thank you for your gift. So we do have the phones ringing. We do have donations coming in online. We really want to keep that going as we continue the day 2, really the first hour of day 2 of our spring pledge drive. Let's have a good, strong hour here as we go about our day and really set us up for success through the rest of the day. 888-388-8821. 888-388-8821. Or again, jp2radio.com. John, I loved what Tim was talking about in the whole refocusing thing, and it brought to mind just this idea of iron sharpening iron. And it really seems like you guys have been together now for 8 years, so you really have become a band of brothers. Talk about just the accountability aspect and really wanting to help each other grow in virtue.
Yeah, it's a huge part of what this group means to me. These guys are so good about, in a loving sense, looking at me in the eye and going, "You're off base, man," or saying, "You're on track and we're going to support you in that." And that goes, when I share about what I've got going on at home, or how I'm, with my, how I'm working with my wife or parenting the kids, and also in the workplace, whether that's being a good employee or trying to lead and being a good boss. These guys are really good at stepping back and saying calmly and in a prayerful sense, here's a little advice on how you can get back to your Christian foundation, because I know you and they know me, and they know me at my core, and they know when I've been up, when I've been down, when I've been aligned more in my faith and misaligned, and those guys can say, hey, we're going to bring you back. And the trust that we built over 8 years and beyond that with many allows me to receive that really, really well. And that's where there's gold in this group. We can all receive kind of 360 review from peers, above us and below us and next to us and all those things. But when the trust isn't there, like it's been built up in this group, it's not received in the same way. And then it isn't put into action right away. And as Tim described, I mean, there are so many times I leave our Thursday morning meeting and I get on a call right away. And there's many people that know that I'll say to them, man, I couldn't be happier right now to be on a call right now, because I just came out of this Thursday morning group. And a lot of times I'm happy, even though the guys looked at me and said, you're a knucklehead. But again, it's received in a positive manner and in a productive manner because of that trust that was built.
Well, and Caesar, I think it's important too, because these guys, they know the type of man you want to be, right? And so that as you're receiving feedback, sometimes maybe it's not the easiest feedback to hear, they have your best intentions at mind.
Absolutely. Exactly. We all have one person that we're trying to emulate and be like, and I think we're all on the same page as far as that goes. And it's easy for us to see in the others when we're, stressed or down, or, things aren't going great, and just trying to extract what's going on, because sometimes it's difficult. But John's right. It's a sacrifice to wake up at 6 or wake up earlier than that. We're there at 6. Well, Tim's about 30 minutes, 6:30.
We call it Tim time. Tim time.
Yeah.
I'm the late guy.
Yeah. But waking up early, and setting that time aside, and having that trust and knowing that person has the best interest in mind. But also, it doesn't even need to be something that's spoken. These guys lead holy lives. They put their wives and kids first, and that's inspiration to me. And I try to be more like that. That does not necessarily come easily for me, and it does to some of these guys. It comes way easier for them at least, or it seems like, at least it seems easy for them, which is a good example that they're doing it right. So their prayerfulness, the time they set aside for the Lord, the time they set aside for their family, it's not something that needs to be said. It's something that I can observe and say, I need to be a little bit more like that, or a lot more like that, depending on the situation. And so in that regard, it's been something they set a goal to attain, somewhere. And sometimes I can make excuses saying, well, I'm busy, or, but, Tim's got 5 kids and he did it, So that excuse kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, I'll let you hop in, but I do want to thank Bo, who gave a shout out to Tim, John, and Caesar. Is Bo a part of your guys' men's group? Or
I don't know.
No?
I don't know.
I think it's Bo Peterson.
Oh, Bo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
we know
Bo's the
Bo.
guy who works with me.
Okay, but we do have Chase, and I think Chase is a member of the men's group.
I'm going to say no to that. Yeah, he is. He very much so. He's a beautiful man.
He gave a donation. Thank you, Chase. I think that still leaves 2 other guys out there though who can
Robert,
call in with their gift. There we go.
By the way, our group is going to give a gift to the radio station as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So just so you know.
Yeah, thank you.
So we don't know how to use Venmo. This is a group that doesn't Venmo.
So let's give out the number: 888-388-8821, 888-388-8821, or again, you can head to jp2radio.com. You were going to build upon what Caesar was saying, Tim.
I was just going to say, I think there is a high level of trust in the group, and it's hard sometimes because 6 of us have been together for a long time now, and in any sort of ministry type environment, and I'm sure we all have friends that we'll talk to about our Bible study group, our group that meets, and it's always like you want to bring more people in, but we're kind of a closed circuit right now, and there's so much trust that's already built up. And the thing that I've told other people in the past is like there's really nothing, zero special about what we do, right? It's just a group of 6 guys who decided to commit to do it, and and carved out the time, and now kind of have the cohesive nature of knowing each other, knowing our wives, knowing our kids, like, and so that trying to build that elsewhere, right? I'd really encourage anybody who's listening, who's looking for that sense of community. Sometimes it's not the men's group at your church, right? That is 18 to 65 and trying to find community there, right? It's sometimes you have to go and create that in a smaller way, right? I've got a buddy who hosts, probably quarterly poker nights, right? With 20 or 30 or 40 guys on a text chain, and on any given night, it's 8 or 10 of those guys who show up, and you're playing poker in somebody's backyard, and maybe having a beverage or two, or whatever it may be, smoking a cigar, but the discussion that's happening in that environment is like one of the more learned church discussions that I've ever been around, because it's just a bunch of guys who all love the Lord, and that's their shared connection, right? So I think there's a lot of ways in which you can have this kind of experience and build your community, that are not 6 o'clock in a coffee shop in Golden Hill on a Thursday morning, but just it's important, right? And it's been important for us, and I think it was kind of an outgrowth of just a couple of guys, I would say primarily John and Robert, who really said, hey, let's do this, let's put it together. And we talk all the time about, how do we expand our message, or what maybe this is the starting point. We joke about we're going to launch our podcast. We won't be a competitor for you
Here
guys.
Here it is.
No,
but you heard it first on JP2 Radio.
There you go.
Yeah, no, and you say there's nothing special, but I would argue there is something special about that, because you guys have been willing to make that commitment weekly for the past 8 years. And there are not a lot of guys who are willing to get up at well before 6 a.m. to be to a place by 6 a.m. to do what you guys do. So I mean, I give you like a lot of commendation, because that really is like an important thing, and that commitment is it is a special thing. So I think, especially as men, right, it's so easy sometimes to put everything else first, and career. I fall into this sometimes. I have to be recentered constantly, of like my job just kind of ruling the roost, and doing everything I can to put myself out for my job, and then my wife is over here saying, hey, what about me? And now kids, like, what about our kids? And so John, just talk a little bit about keeping the priorities straight, especially in thinking about, yes, you guys have your professions where you can carry out and live out your faith, but your first call, your vocational call, is to marriage.
It is to marriage. And I'll never forget, in one of our Thursday mornings, I was talking about the stresses that I had at work, and trying to balance that, trying to be the good employee, trying to perform with the foundation of faith there. But at home, I wasn't focused where God has asked me to be focused, and where God has placed most of my time, and has asked me to put most of my energy. And Caesar looked at me and amongst that group, and he said, John, your mission is with your wife and kids, period, right now. First fruits are to God. And that, again, that's 6 a.m. I love being up early in the morning, because we give that first fruits to God. But the focus is your wife and kids. And it just hit me like God was speaking to me. I'm not saying that that's who you are.
I don't even remember saying this.
Yeah, I know, but I'll never forget it. Yeah. And there are lots of moments in this Thursday morning group where that's happened to me. And of course I've told myself that a million times. But when one of these men who I respect and love look at me and say it in a different way, in a challenging and loving way, all in the same, it's like, okay, I'm on track. I appreciate that. And then, by the way, I get off track, and they got to look at me again. But it is. I mean, that's
the human condition, man.
And it's a recheck every Thursday, and every once a week is just such a good cadence to be on in order to reset. And so, yeah, this really helps me from that perspective of help balancing that professional and personal life, but always with God first, and starting there.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom called in, and he says he works with you, Tim.
Nice.
And says Tom and Maria are donating from Pacific Beach. So thank you for your donation. They are
Thanks, guys.
expecting their first child today. So please keep us in your prayers for
Wow.
a safe
True
and
story.
healthy delivery. So
Wonderful.
yes, we will definitely keep you and Maria in our prayers, Tom, as well as your baby. Do you know if it's a boy or a girl?
It's a little girl.
It's
yeah.
a little girl. Excellent.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
That's
Appreciate it.
great. Thank you, Tom. And thank you to everybody who has called in so far. And thank you to everybody who's going to continue to call in as we continue through day 2 of our Spring Pledge Drive here with JP2 Catholic Radio. The number to call is 888-388-8821, 888-388-8821. If you would prefer, you can just head to jp2radio.com. That's the number 2, jp2radio.com. And you can hit donate there as well. Caesar, just kind of getting back into the vocational conversation, how important is it for you to be a good, strong husband and live out that example for your children?
Yeah, that's number one. We have this conversation often, is that I think it was Paul VI. He said, this generation does not listen to teachers, they listen to witnesses. And if they listen to teachers, it's because they are witnesses.
See,
there's the wisdom.
Boom.
Yeah.
There we go. Now, sometimes we have to fact check.
Could have been a different pope. But I think it was Paul VI.
I know the quote exists.
By somebody.
Yeah. But no, I think about that all the time, as far as with my kids is it's very important that they know, that they see that I love their mom well. I think that's the best thing that you can do as a father, is love your wife well and set that example. Having that relationship be a good one, I mean, changes your life. I worked in domestic violence for a good while, and as an officer, you see it a lot, and as a detective, you see it all the time. And just being thankful for the person that God put in my life, and for that decision that I made, that sometimes looking back, it feels like it was a decision that was already made for me. So the blessings that having a good partner is you can't count them, so being an example, doing things, having good habits in the hopes that, your kids will pick them up, whether it's the habit of praying, of going to mass on Sunday, like I said, just an everyday thing. The everyday things are important. We take it for granted, but I'm at my house, I don't clean, but I do make the meals. And putting time.
Emily's told us
something
that,
like that.
Yeah. She's very clear.
She's very clean. I'm very messy, but she burns and I cook. So, but doing that,
God bless her.
yeah. But even doing that to the best of my ability,
I mean, you found something that works too.
Yeah.
It's
right.
It's not a matter of you just being lazy. I mean, you in marriage, you figure out what works, and you agree upon it, and you're a team, right? You're a team of horses that's pulling, and sometimes you're down, and sometimes you're up, and you have to carry the weight. That's kind of the ebb and flow of marriage. And I think that's the importance, though, of making sure like you are connected, you are on the same team, you're communicating, so you can be aware that when those ebbs and flows comes, you can be there for the other.
And that's a great analogy, because you also have to be pulling in the same direction. Because you start pulling in opposite directions, it's not going to go very well. And sometimes that happens, right? You get more focused, like John said, on other things. And it's important to have that moment of clarity where it's like, hey, you know what? I need to change directions here a little bit.
Absolutely. As the young guy, in the midst of the young children's and the craziness of life, how do you make sure that you're committed to your wife in the midst of everything that's happening? Because I know that sometimes it can be like all the kid, like when you've got, we have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and 5 weeks. And it's like, it seems like all of our energy goes towards the kids. And then at the end of the day, it's like, oh yeah, I still have my wife.
Yeah, no, I know that feeling for sure. I've got 12, 11. She just turned 11 on Friday.
You better get this right.
Yeah, 12, 11, 8, 6, and almost 3.
Nice.
So 2.5. She'll turn 3 next month, and so definitely have had that, those seasons of life for sure, and the timing of kind of, oh my gosh, we have to be in so many places, right? Like my kids right now are going to be in a school play this weekend and next weekend, my 2 older kids. And so my wife and I are kind of splitting duties right now of, she's doing all kinds of stuff for the drama program and the show. And I'm, running baseball practice tonight, and we just got all these things to go in different directions. And so it's a lot of short check-ins of like, all right, what's the plan for today? How are we going to, make sure that we get everybody everywhere? And then finding the small moments of connection, and I think all of us would be in a much, much worse spot without our wives, both for our group, right, supporting us. They are the ones who are taking on whatever responsibilities have to happen in the house on Thursday mornings, and supporting us to do that. And it's, I think our wives in particular, whenever we get together, maybe quarterly or somebody's birthday or whatever it may be, it's always funny to see our wives interact, because they're friends. A lot of them knew each other before this group, through ministry or what have you. And kind of hearing them swap stories about what they've heard from the group, right? Because we'll share stuff about what's going on in our family. And so somebody will, my wife, Tara, will say, hey, Jenny, I just heard this great news about Lily at school, John's daughter. And they'll be like, oh, how'd you hear that? Like, well, it, just traveled through the group. And so it's a fun, I think, I hope that they like the group and enjoy each other. And, whenever we're able to get together.
They like each other way more than they like us.
But when we get together as a group of 12 or even more with our kids, it's always a fun time. And
That's
I think
awesome.
it's really cool for that family aspect of it to be modeled too.
That's great. Well, John, Tim, Caesar, thank you so much for your time this morning. I
Thanks
truly
for
am
doing this.
inspired by the commitment that you guys have made. So thank you for living out and taking seriously, not just your faith journey, but your vocational call. I think it takes good, strong men to stand up and stand for, our wife, our kids, and make sure that is the message going forward.
Thank you, Brandon, for having this, and you guys producing this. This is an amazing show.
Absolutely. We'll be right back.